Thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I am excited to have my next guest with me, Jackie, who was referred to me by a mutual friend, Al Travis, who was also on the show. So I'm really excited to have her here today and dive into some great topics and find out a little bit about what she's been up to during this pandemic, lockdown, back in order, wherever, whatever's going on. Okay, it's been crazy. So I'm excited to have a conversation with her. But before we get into that, I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm so delighted to be here this evening just to have some fun. I'm Jacqueline Pitt, as she already referred to me. I'm actually a nurse.
Oh,
I am a nurse by trade. I did a lot of nursing in a lot of different areas. And I think I have embarked on my most favorite area now, and that's school nursing. I'm a school nurse in a middle school for roughly about 1,200 students. Yeah, so it's a pretty nice sized middle school. And can you imagine that age group and how challenging it can be, but also exciting all at the same time. So I am also a new author, just
oh,
penned along with six other authors, penned our first book called Mothers and Daughters, Their Way, Their Story, Only They Can Tell It. So excited about that and taking this across the country to just have other people interact. Our Mothers and Daughters brunch that we'll be taking, our Mothers and Daughters brunch book tour. That's what
oh.
that we're going to do across the country. So we have a few areas already on lockdown. So we're looking forward to getting started with that. So, I mean, just as a mom, just loving life, three beautiful daughters, but with my husband and I, and then we also have another daughter that's our bonus daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I call her my bonus daughter. So, and so we're just loving life, and they range from the age of soon to be 40. Our bonus daughter is 39, and soon to be 40, and
Mm-hmm.
our oldest daughter together is 37, and the youngest turned 18 the end of December. So just
Oh,
loving life with our beautiful girls, and just enjoying what's next. What's next? So that's a little bit about me. Of course, like I said, it's always more to tell, more to know.
hmm. I love that. And I'm like, hey, bonus starter almost 40. I'm like, what is the secret to the fountain of youth? Okay. I would have never guessed, okay? So that is awesome. So, I love the journey with the daughters, or is the book about just being a mom and dealing with daughters, or what's the subjects ranging for the collaboration?
Well, it's really telling a story about how different each of us have experienced different things in life. And it really depends on where they are. Like I have one talk about being a silver spoon. That's the title of her chapter. She's out of California. She talks about, being raised in a sheltered life pretty much. And
Mhm.
she learned along the way. We got teenage pregnancy.
Mm.
The 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 highs and lows, of
Mhm.
going through that period of their life, divorce, um,
Mhm.
abuse.
Mm.
You can think of mental illness is what we're pretty much talking about in the entire book, and each of us brought a different spin on
Mhm.
our relationships were impacted either as a mother or as a daughter. I came from the aspect of being a daughter, raised in a home where my mom suffered from mental illness. She was a man
Mhm.
depressive or bipolar.
Mm.
Being raised in that household and taking the responsibility of being the mom, which is,
Mhm.
some people like, oh, you can't be the mom. But in many cases, I had to be, because I had to be the one to, cook or say, let's do this and let's do that. Or my grandmother gave me the assignment of watching my mom. So if she
Mm.
wanted to get up and, you know, go somewhere in one of her manic phases, I was the one to notify my grandmother. So,
Wow. And I struggled with depression in the past, and I definitely can understand what that journey can be like maybe for other people looking in. Um
mhm,
and it looks different for everybody. So in my case, I was doing a whole bunch of stuff, but not really getting much accomplished in terms of my own mental wellness and what I needed in
mhm.
order to feed myself and replenish myself. So I guess the question would be, when it comes to writing such personal topics that a lot of people feel intimidated to be vulnerable about, what was it that really helped you guys come together and say, this needs to be written down for more people to hear the story?
Well, the journey started, Lachelle, when I was planning to have a mothers and daughters conference. Uh,
Mhm.
and I was going to bring moms and daughters together because through the years I've seen relationships between mothers and daughters, some great relationships, others strained relationships. And it just, it was dropped in my spirit to say, hey, let's bring this together and see how we can bring the two relationships, whether it's a strained relationship or whether it's one that's really great, uh,
Mhm.
bring them together and see how we can help balance the relationships and bring mothers and daughters together. Because we know that a mom and daughter's relationship is absolutely one of the most beautiful things, but also it can be a complicated thing. So, through the process of doing that, the pandemic hit. And as with everyone, we had to shift. So, with the shift, I just started a Facebook group. And the Facebook group, trying to think of things. And, I probably don't have to tell you this because, you're, doing your thing. You try to find ways to make it interesting, to keep it interesting.
Mhm.
So I added, a Feature Friday. And Feature Friday allowed a mom or daughter to tell part of their story. So
Mhm.
it began, you know, God just led me. He was like, write a book. And I was like, what do you mean, God? I'm already writing a book. And I was already working on my personal memoir. And I said, write a book. I'm already writing a book. So he was like, no, put that down and write this. So I was like, okay, I do it. You're like, okay, if you say so. And as I've said many times before, if you know enough about not obeying God, when
Right.
when he speaks, you be like, okay, I got it. So that's what I did. And through the stories, a lot of the ladies has prefaced their story with, I never told anyone this. I hope this is someone. I wasn't sure if I should say this or tell this. And there it went. I was like, that's it. We have to use our voice. And using our voice is going to change so many people's lives. And through that process, it was like, God just kept dropping ladies that was doing Feature Friday. And it wasn't everyone. He was like,
Mhm.
this person, ask that person, ask this person. And so that's how it became about. I asked different ladies, and they were like, sure. They were like, sure. So there were a few hesitations, but the ones who hesitated, they weren't ready. They just weren't ready to tell their story. And it's okay because
Mhm.
is not ready at the same time. But I did
Mhm.
that this was going to bless and heal so many people. So that's how we got started.
That is so awesome. And just like my book story, I was in a Facebook group during the pandemic, and we would meet Friday. Well, I don't know can't remember what day it was, but we
Mm-hmm.
would meet once a week on Zoom calls. And
Mm-hmm.
so every time we met, everybody would have these interesting stories of how they overcame, and just so
Mm-hmm.
inspiring. And so we wrote a book, and it was released
Wow.
during the
Wow.
pandemic as well. So,
Wow.
hey, don't despise humble beginnings, because
That's right.
you never know where it could take you and how
Absolutely.
it can impact other people. So
Mm-hmm.
for somebody who's watching and they kind of have that spiritual tug to do something, to take action, what advice would you give them? Because a lot of times when those things happen, there is no roadmap to
Hmm.
something that they can follow. It's like uncharted territory. So, what advice would you give them as you went through your own journey of listening to that spirit led calling?
I would tell them to really be mindful, and I be mindful of who and what you're listening to, because I think many times we're so used to telling ourselves or talking ourselves out of something
Mhm,
when there's an opportunity right before us. And we'll come up with a million excuses. We'll come up with a million excuses why we shouldn't. But instead of coming up with why we shouldn't, we should say, why not? And one of the authors actually wrote, why not me? And that was so
mhm,
profound, because it's like, why not? Why not me? Why wouldn't I use the life that may have been, maybe it will a little confusing and disappointing or something for me, but I survived it. So
mhm,
use what you survive to be someone else's survivor guide to help them through
mhm,
the process. Because many people, a lot of people responded and said, I didn't realize someone else was going through the same thing I was going through. It's somebody else
mhm,
there that really needs to hear your story, because guess what? We cannot draw everybody. My voice would not be able to draw everyone, but your voice may be able to draw someone else. Your voice, I might draw 100, you might draw 200. It doesn't matter.
mhm,
But if you never use your voice, the person that's waiting to hear your voice will never hear it, whether it's in writing or whether it's in speaking. So we have to be willing to say, I'm going to do it regardless. I'm going to do it afraid.
Love that. And, so for a lot of the moms that are watching and they're struggling through, I mean, we're still like into this pandemic kind of hybrid situation, some kids in school, some at home, working from home. What advice would you give them about being able to navigate through these times, in terms of being a leader in the home and the roles that they're playing right now?
I would definitely say, this has been just a trying and challenging time for many, especially
Mhm.
for those that do have to have their children in their home. One thing must say that's been beneficial. I don't have young children, but what I have been able to do is talk a lot of parents through that process. Is
Mm,
set your schedule. Get
mhm,
your schedule. Not that. Don't make your schedule so rigid
mhm,
that you're not able to bend. Understanding you're dealing with children, and some dealing with children of all different ages, right? So
mhm,
sometimes you have that toddler who demands all your attention and will not, as my daughter, she has a set of twins that are 7, and
wow.
has a baby girl that's 3. So sometimes she's like, she's clingy. She doesn't want me to put her down. And at the same time, I'm trying to get the twins set up and make sure they're in front of their computers and whatever. I said, that's when you say, you know what, today, this is what we can do. I'm going to probably have her on my hip because she's not, to give yourself some peace. Don't try to keep sit her down because you know that's not going to work. She's
Mhm,
She's not there. So you can do what you can do with her. Get them set up, entertain her a little bit, come back and check on them. But I think one of the things is having a schedule, but not letting your schedule be so rigid that you're not willing
mhm,
to bend and say, you know what? Hey, we usually have breakfast at, 8 o'clock. But today we might have to do breakfast at 9. So
mhm,
allow yourself the opportunity to bend, because that's what
mhm,
you're going to have to do. You have to be flexible.
mhm. Yeah. So, what have you learned about leadership during this time when, you've had to shift or, you are doing things that are kind of unfamiliar, learning new processes, procedures, and all these different things. What um characteristic or what really stands out about what you've gone through during the past year?
I think what stands out the most with me, Michelle, it has to be the fact that, nothing is sure. There's nothing that's sure because when it comes to the world and things changing, that you have to understand that what you know today may not be tomorrow. And
Mhm,
it's okay. But what you also have to understand that you have the ability to adapt because many of us didn't realize we had the ability to adapt. When we came into this pandemic, we had no idea that we were going to be able to uh, stay home. A lot of people are like, I can't sit still. I'm not going to be able to be home. We had no idea that we would be able to stay home like we did. We had no idea that we would be able to use the resources that we had because guess what?
mhm,
They were limited. And even if
mhm,
they were available, we couldn't get to them. So
mhm,
we had to learn how to be resourceful and use what we had. We had to learn how to get along in our spaces because now you have families. You're gonna really find out a lot about your family when you're spending 24 hours a day with family,
mhm,
right? So you're gonna find out whether you really have patience in the process of being with your family all day every day for 24 hours a day and not having that break.
mhm,
It's, you're going to learn ways to actually be able to even be closer as a family,
mhm,
become knitted together as a family, even with leadership, even with management leadership. No matter what we were doing, we learned technology. Be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I would be able to do so much,
mhm,
via Zoom, via whatever streaming device that we use. And you learn how to teach you learn how to teach yourself new things.
mhm,
Sometimes on a whim, like, oh my God, I never did this before. But you figured out that you actually had the ability to do some amazing things,
mhm,
even at the, like I said, at the shift, because the world shifted so quickly,
mhm.
had to adapt. So we learned that we were very resourceful and we could adapt quickly.
I love that. So, during this time, we have to be mindful of self care. That's one of the things that's like a non negotiable for me after my own journey. So, what are
Hmm.
some things that you do to keep yourself grounded and being mindful of self care?
Now that is so crucial, so important. That's one of the things we talk about when in our mothers and daughters group Wellness Wednesday. When our moderators, we talk about that because for many moms, that can be a challenge. And why it's a challenge? Because we don't allow ourselves, we don't take the time, So is to say, today I'm going to have my quiet time. And that's really important for me to have my quiet,
Mhm,
you
mhm,
know, and maybe in the morning, maybe in the evening after you put the kids to bed or whatever. Maybe you have a time where you just sit. Sometimes it's just sit and read, and sometimes it's just sit and being quiet and listen. Listen
mhm,
for what is it, or even assessing your day. What is
mhm,
it that I did today that I can do better tomorrow?
mhm,
To allow me to have an easier day. But one of the things I do is making sure, because self care is not just about physical, it's not about you just getting your nails done and your hair done.
mhm,
It's so much more than that. It's about the mental and emotional process of it.
mhm,
Take care of yourself, knowing when to say no.
mhm, mhm,
Instead of saying being the yes woman, knowing when I can't do it, knowing that you don't have to apologize. You don't have
mhm,
to apologize for saying no. It's
mhm,
that I'm not able to do it. Know your limits.
mhm, mhm,
Your limits. Set limits and say this is what
mhm,
I'm able to offer today. And being willing to take that opportunity to sit with yourself.
mhm.
just kind of analyze where am I at now, and where would I like to be, and
Mm,
enjoy the process and really relish in the moment. Stop thinking about that meal I have to make. Stop thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow. With let me get out the clothes. Let me do this. You think about the
mm,
laundry. No, sit, enjoy the moment, breathe,
mm.
relax.
I love that. And I mean, for some people, that is just like foreign language, okay? I mean,
Mhm.
I was a part of that go, go, go and to sit down, but it is so much peace in doing that.
Mhm.
You really can be a lot more strategic and successful because you can set your intention, which is different than just letting life happen to you and pull you in every direction.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens. We end up allowing life to control us instead of us controlling life.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So true. So now you mentioned your book. What's the name of your book and some other books or podcasts that you would suggest to everybody?
Name of my book is Mothers and Daughters: Their Story, Their Way, Only They Can Tell It.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's just a journey of moms and daughters. It could be about mom, it could be about daughters and their journeys. uh,
Mhm.
that you will absolutely love. I don't know whether anyone, I read another book which I thought was so phenomenal, and I'm trying to remember the name of the book specifically. I wanted The Gift of Fear. I
Oh.
and I'm trying to remember the author. I can't think of his name, but the book is called The Gift of Fear.
Mhm.
I suggested my daughters read that because it talks about instincts, specific
Mhm.
those things that we have that would give us intuition, or of things that we know that we ignore. But I wanted them to read it because I wanted them to understand how important it was for them to follow their instinct.
Mm.
Know that that spiritual guide, that Holy Spirit that lives on the inside of them is there for a reason, and for them to be mindful of it, because he talked about how many women, he talked about women specifically, but he also mentioned some men in the book, but he talked about how the things they could have avoided if
Mhm.
they listened to their instinct, if they had listened to their inner selves to get
Mhm.
them in direction. But that is a powerful, powerful book. And I thought it was one of the most phenomenal things to absolutely read and understand. Because as you're reading, you're starting to say, oh my God, that's what that is. That's true. So
Mhm.
you can relate and connect
Mhm.
to the fact that each of us have that inner self, that Holy Spirit, intuition, whatever you call it, that is our guide to let us know when something is maybe not right, or when
Mhm.
move in this direction versus another, but it's there. But we just need to tap into it and listen when it actually speaks.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned a lot about spiritual journeys, and I totally resonate with that because as a mother with 15 children and all the stuff we got to manage, you can't do it without God. But there is that element of, you know, doing things that are different, standing out, not being the
Mhm.
same as everybody else. How do you harness that ability to do that that allows you to keep moving forward?
Just understanding who I am and not being concerned about who people want me to be. And that can
Mhm.
be a challenge for many, because we have been taught, fix your hair, don't go out without your makeup, don't
Mhm.
put on this. So that is a story that we have heard so often, that it puts us in a state of mind where we're always checking ourselves instead of being ourselves. We're always
Mhm.
wondering if I'm good enough. Am I tall enough? Am I short enough? Are my eyes big enough? How are my lips, small enough? So we get in a constant um, constant, you know, whirlwind where we're
Mhm.
constantly thinking about, am I good enough when I'm looking at myself? Am I, this, am I that? And one of the things that I talk to my teenage girls, because I work with the middle school and I work with a lot of teenage girls. And unfortunately, Michelle, I work with young ladies that are cutters and they cut themselves. And part of the reason that I talk to them, and one of the things I talk to them about in the process of that is letting them know they're worthy and letting them know they're good enough and letting them know that no matter what you are, I tell them all the time, I say, look at how your hair look, your hairstyle. It wouldn't look good on me, but you wear it well.
Mhm.
Are. And wherever you find yourself, no matter what skin you're in, you have to be comfortable in that skin. Wear yourself well and don't be concerned about what other people are doing. That's when you have true freedom. Whether
Mhm.
someone else, what is someone else doing? What is someone else saying? Or even when someone tried to guide you, they can't guide your ship. It belongs to you.
Mhm.
You have to understand that. So what works for them may not work for you.
Mhm. I love that. Now, so that's just commendable that you work with these young children in this situation. And what do you think we can learn to do to instill some kind of trust to allow them the ability to speak to us rather than cut themselves?
One of the things that I found to be most crucial is judgment.
Mm.
Many times they come to adults or they don't come to adults because they fear that adults would judge them and
Mhm.
they won't listen. And that is another key, listening. We want to always believe that as an adult, we should be telling young people what to do and how to do it.
Mm.
How do we know what to tell them if we don't listen to them? We need to sit and listen. They'll come in the office sometimes in my health room, and I'll be like, okay, I say, I have time. And I make time. Do I have time? But I make time. And, if I have someone else come to my door, I may wave them off. I may be like, just a moment. And I sit with them. I was like, you sit here, I sit here. And when you're ready to talk, we can talk. When you're
Mm.
ready to tell me, I ask them, how can I help you? Because I can't, get inside your head. You have to be willing to talk to me. And I just give them time. I'll just sit sometimes and just say, we can sit here whenever you're ready, you know. And, many times they'll tell me, no, I'm not cutting. No, I'm not this. No, I'm not that. But if I sit there and be quiet and just wait and listen,
Mm.
eventually end up telling me. It usually don't take very long at all. They're just because they know I'm willing. And I tell them that. I say, I'm willing.
Mhm.
Wait for you to tell me I'm here.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so, listening is so key with a lot of things. What is it that we get wrong when it comes to listening? Are we just I mean, what is it that most adults do that just don't get that connection?
I think one of the things that we do as adults is, like I said initially, we believe we have the answer. We believe that
Mm.
adults, we have the answer. And it's not even with children, it's not even with teenagers always. It's even sometimes when we're talking with our friends, our spouses, you
Mm.
know, we're always ready or preparing our answer before we even listen to what the question is or what they're trying to convey to us. But I
Mm.
really believe as adults, that's what it is. We believe that we should have the answer. So we're so ready to give an answer that we're not listening and we're not paying attention. Because that's what many of the kids they'll say, my mom doesn't listen to me. She's not
Mhm.
hearing what I'm saying. So, that's part of it. Like I say, you're always willing to ready to give an answer that you're not really listening to what, a person has to say.
Love that. I mean, that is just a great quality to practice because so often. We feel like what you said, it's a way to prove our knowledge, ability, whatever is wrapped
Hmm.
into feeling like we have to have all the answers. Been there, done
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's how, look, that's how I know, right? You,
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
you experience a thing, you know a thing. That's basically how you end up coming to that place, right?
So true. Now, so this has just been a great interview, great insights. What's the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me on Facebook. You can get me on Facebook with my name, Jacqueline Pitt. You can
Hmm.
get me on Instagram at Changing Living
Hmm.
on Instagram. And you can always email me if you like. You can reach me by email, and you can always reach me at pitjackie1227 at Gmail.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for joining us. And then what final words would you like to share with the audience today?
I would say be comfortable where you are right now. It may not be where you want to be.
Hmm.
Relish the moment and know it will not always be, you will not always be here. If it's in a place where you don't desire to be, you will not always be in this place. Learn from it.
Hmm.
Every place you're at has an opportunity for you to learn from it and grow.
Hmm. Love that. This is
Mhm.
great. Well, thank you so much, Jackie. So glad that we got connected and loving everything you shared. If you guys resonated with her message, reach out to her. This is the way that we can improve and be better versions of ourselves. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the comments and we'll make sure that Jackie gets those answered for you. But in the meantime, we want to thank you all for watching and we want to wish you a wonderful evening. And we will see you all on the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
You are